So far in 2025, I've kept over 10 extremely unique pets from every corner of the world. So I've turned all those separate videos into a massive movie compilation. Axolotls, piranhas, black widows, and even two-headed snakes. So grab some pizza and snacks, cause you are in for a crazy journey. Today, I found a listing of someone selling a pet axolotls home. When I clicked on it, I saw an absolute disgrace of an enclosure. I mean, the water was brown, there was random trash, and somehow there was a live axolotl inside. Apparently, the seller's uncle gave it to him and he needed someone to take care of it for him. But $5. Dang, that's extremely cheap. Let me go save this axolotl. So I drove out to the seller and bought the tank with the axolotl for $5. Okay, I just got this in my car and we gotta take this home to see if the axolotl inside is gonna be able to survive. And I really hope it's okay, because if it is, I'm gonna completely revamp this home into a dream home paradise so we can give this axolotl his best life. Quickly, I went home and set up a filter in the water so I would be able to see inside. But after letting it run for 30 minutes, the water literally did not clear up at all. Okay, I have no time to waste, so I'm just gonna try and dig around and scoop it out with this net, even though I can't see anything. So I started to take each decoration out one by one, and it didn't take long until I saw this little thing at the bottom of the net. I had found the axolotl, and thankfully it was still in good health. So I quickly moved it out into a temporary tank and was super surprised by what I saw. Guys, this is not a normal axolotl. This is actually a super rare axolotl. It has the golden trait and it also looks like it's albino and a baby. To put in perspective how rare this is, this whole tank was like $5, as you know. I could probably sell this right now as it is for over $100. And little did I know, this axolotl was even rarer than I thought. It actually had a special gene that made it be able to glow in the dark and more. Yeah, this video is insane. Anyways, to start the enclosure transformation process, step number 1 was to empty out that disgusting sewage water. Okay, I don't even know where to begin with how bad this tank is. Pretty much every decoration's a fake plastic one. The substrate is absolutely nasty, and just the whole thing has no structure to it. It's just plain ugly. So I took out all the trash decorations and threw them in the garbage where they belong. Then I emptied out all the sand, since I'm pretty sure that's what was causing the water to be so brown. And finally, what the heck is this, bro? Why did the seller's uncle just tape a picture of bamboo on the wall? It doesn't fit, and it doesn't even make sense. Like, axolotls don't live with bamboo. Yeah, that is so dumb. Let's rip this trash off of there. Anyways, now that we're back to the bare bones of this tank, the first step is to build the lake bed base. To build that, we start by just putting a ton of sand in here and piling it up in a mound in the middle of the tank, because I have a cool idea for this. You see, axolotls live at the bottom of lakes in the wild, so to build that in here, I stuck some wooden branches in the sand and surrounded them in a ton of river rocks. Which, if you're wondering the names of them, this type is called a Tahaiji stone, and this one is called a Seiryu stone. Yeah, I don't know who names these, but I would just call them smooth stone and rough stone. Those are better names. Anyways, I also want to cover these mounds in tons of aquatic plants, which if you've seen my channel before, you know these are extremely expensive. I mean, look at all of these. This totals to $125. Please subscribe. Well, I forced myself to forget the price while I planted them around, and I made it look absolutely beautiful. I put the taller plants near the back of the mound and the smaller plants up near the front, since it adds some nice depth in here, or something like that. Alright, it's starting to look pretty good, but to complete the sides, this is where we're going to put the custom DIY builds. And you see, in the wild, axolotls like to hide in little rock caves because that's where they feel safe from predators. So I'm gonna build a custom little cave on the right side, and to start that, I found this basket in my house. Oh, this is gonna work perfectly. Let's just get that out of there. With this, I started by getting out a heavy-duty saw and cutting a hole in it that would serve as the entrance to the cave. And then I quickly sanded down the rough edges and used my hot glue gun to start gluing these little thin gray rocks all around it to obviously give it that cave look. And after I was done gluing all those on, it actually looked pretty solid. But as you can see, some of the hot glue I used to connect it was still exposed, so I quickly covered that in some pebbles. Once I was done, I put the enclosure in, and it didn't really fit. So I took it out and rearranged some of the rocks and put it back in, and boom, perfect fit. There we go. I think that cave looks pretty good in the grand scheme of things. And yeah, it is a pretty small entrance to get inside. But obviously the rare axolotl is still a baby, so it should be able to fit in there just fine. Anyways, I finished it off by putting some plants right out in front and a couple big rocks on top to make it look more cavey. There we go. Everything's starting to come together well, but now it's time to design the left side. And if you guys remember, that first version of the tank had this big, ugly, like bamboo wallpaper along the back. But anyways, this did actually get me kind of inspired. And for the left side, I want to make it just like bamboo themed, you know? We got to keep a little bit of the original, because I guess it wouldn't really be transforming if we didn't. So let's get that done. For the first decoration, I of course got out some brown sticks of bamboo, so it'd be bamboo-y, you know? Oops. And on each stick of bamboo, I started to drill little holes. You see, axolotls like to have resting spots near the top of their enclosures. That way they can easily swim up and gulp air from the surface. So to build something like that, I got out some string and started to thread all the bamboo together. I kind of felt like a grandma doing this, you know, sewing away with a needle. Yeah, it was pretty fun though. Anyways, I hot glued the ends of the string so they wouldn't move, and boom, check this out. A bamboo hammock that the axolotl can rest on. In order to get it attached to the top of the enclosure, I once again used some hot glue to put on some little suction cups, and in no time it was complete. Alright, there we go. Check the hammock out. I'm sure the axolotl's gonna like to lay on this. And yeah, to complete this left side, we're gonna add a little more bamboo decoration. And so in the sand, I wanna put some live actual bamboo. It's curly for some reason, I don't really know why, but I'm gonna plant this in the sand. So I put each of the bamboos there under the hammock and covered it in a mound of sand. But I'm not done yet. I've been saving the coolest addition for last. And this next thing is gonna take this from a normal aquarium to, well, if I'm being honest, it's probably still gonna be kind of normal, but it's gonna be cooler looking. Now to build this thing, I first got out some giant plastic boards and glued them together to make one giant board. Then I covered it all with some black felt. Now you're probably wondering why I built this giant black platform, but basically the reason is because I can go and put it right behind the tank just like this. And then now what I'm gonna do is use these things called plant pockets, glue them to the back of that, and basically what this allows me to do is, you know, put plants in them, and we're gonna have some overhanging plants in here. But first I needed to go get the plants, so like always I drove to Walmart. Okay, I'm at Walmart now, and look at this. Bro, this is usually where all the plants are. For some reason they replaced them all with plastic Christmas trees. Who cares about these? I want my plants back. All they got is these stupid roses. Yeah, it turns out the plants are gone from Walmart for the season, so instead I had to go to a normal, boring plant shop and get the plants there. Okay, I was kind of sad that I had to abandon Walmart, but this was only like $50 for all these plants. Like, dang, that's actually a good deal. It's definitely cheaper than those aquatic plants. We don't talk about those, though. When I got home, I got out the plants and put them all inside their little pockets. And dang, check this whole thing out. It actually looks all right. Just don't go around and look at the back. Yeah, it's kind of curving, but honestly, it kind of gives a cool effect, and you know, it makes the plant leaves drip over the top. Anyways, now to complete the build, I just got to do some finishing touches, and what that means is I first filled it up with some cycled water and attached a filter on it. Okay, I've never used one of these filters before, but apparently it's pretty cool. I just got to go and plug it in down here, and dang, check this out. Look, it's like a waterfall. It makes a bunch of these little water streams. But I guess when I want it to be quiet, I can just go like that, and there we go. Can't really hear it anymore. Now I saved the best thing for last, this little gift present. Okay, this is actually cool what's inside. Basically, it's this little glass crystal ball with a hologram of an axolotl inside. There we go. So what you do is you put it on this little platform, and basically it just kind of glows there and changes colors. Anyways, this is now completely transformed, and it's time to not only add in the golden axolotl to his new home, but show off exactly what axolotls do during their days and show off how it can literally glow in the dark. So I scooped it up out of its temporary enclosure, and bada bing, bada boom, welcome to your new home. Right away, he started to explore around his new tank and eventually made his way into the cave I built for him. Okay, so the axolotl in the cave right now, so this is the perfect time to test out some foods with him to see which he likes the most. And first up, I want to test just some normal fish food. Yeah, I don't know if he's actually going to eat it. It's fish food, it's not axolotl food, but let's try it out. So I dropped them in and let them sit for a little while, but yeah, he didn't really eat them, and he didn't even come out to take a look at them. A little later, the axolotl left the cave, so I got out the second food, bloodworms. But these are frozen bloodworms, so to make them, you know, not frozen anymore, just kind of plop the packet in a little cup of water water like that. Then we can go and just take this big chunk and put it in right next to the axolotl. And it didn't take long until he noticed it and instantly took a snap at it, eating the whole pile up. And oh my gosh, he just ate that whole thing. Oh dang, he's hungry. Anyways, I got the third and final food source out, night crawlers. Which are just worms basically, but they're giant worms compared to those tiny little blood worms. Okay, here we go. We got a nice little tiny piece of worm and we're just gonna drop it in right next to the axolotl. And after wiggling it around in front of him, he picked up the scent, and as you can expect, yep, he started going crazy, eating this worm up too. He's absolutely just devouring this, just shaking it up. He's not letting this thing get away. That's a good axolotl. Oh my gosh, this guy's so cool. We actually got this guy for $5. I can't believe that. Anyways, later that day, I was watching some videos about axolotls and figured out that sometimes they can be bred to literally glow in the dark under UV light. Which, I mean, look at that. That is just so cool. Okay, so I got all the lights turned off in my room and it's nighttime. So I got this little light, and when you click the button, it turns on the UV rays, and oh, that's blinding. But anyways, I just want to shine this in here and see if my axolotl actually has that glow in the dark ability. I actually have no idea if this is gonna work. Wait. Oh, okay, wait. I actually did not expect that to work. Oh, look at the axolotl. He's just glowing in the dark. Yeah, I don't really know what I expected, but it's actually pretty cool. So for whatever reason, if I can't find the axolotl, I just turn off the lights, click this button, and boom, you're found, buddy. You're never gonna be able to hide from me ever again. But guys, there is still way more, and as the video goes on, the pets get more and more unique. And next up, we got something so weird you probably wouldn't consider it a pet. We've all seen piranhas in movies depicted as these crazy evil fish that will eat anything they lay their eyes on. But despite how deadly they're made out to be, for some reason, you can legally buy them to keep as a pet. So I'm gonna buy 6 piranhas, build them a home, and test to see if they're actually as vicious as the movies made them out to be. Meaning, yes, I will be putting my hand inside of their tank. What could go wrong? Let's just buy this thing. And so literally the next day, the delivery van dropped off the package that supposedly had the cold-blooded killing piranhas. That was fast. I'm hoping all these guys survived the shipping, since as you can see, it's pretty cold out. But anyways, let's get these inside. So I got out this 20-gallon tank I had laying around and filled it up with some cycled water. Then I cut open the tape on the box that had the piranhas inside. Oh shoot, bro. There is literally piranhas right under my hand. Let me take this bag out. And oh, I cannot believe I'm gonna be keeping these as pets. What the heck? Thankfully, every single piranha had survived the shipping, so I put all 6 of them into the tank. But when I put them in, I realized they were barely moving and definitely not acting like normal vicious piranhas. And look, I can literally drop a cricket into the water, and usually they would go crazy immediately eating that up, but check it out. No reaction at all. You see, the reason they're not moving is because they need a way bigger tank with all the right stuff inside. So I got out a new tank and filled it with 100 pounds of sand. We gotta do this because, of course, the first step is creating the floor and decorations. To continue this process, I started to use these sort of thin sticks and use a hot glue gun to hang them from the top of the enclosure. You see, these piranhas that I bought are red-bellied piranhas, which are supposedly the most vicious species, and they live in the Amazon River where there's all these roots and stuff hanging in the water, so that's what I'm trying to recreate in here with this. Anyways, next up, it was time to use even more wood. You see, this time I want to stack up some thicker wood to make it look like a massive tree trunk is growing from out of the water. So I actually took the wood out and used some water-safe spray foam to connect all the pieces together with some branches coming off of them. And then once all the spray foam and stuff on it has dried, we just plop it in there like that. And boom, there we go. Check it out. You can even see the roots and stuff. It's pretty cool. It looks like a tree, but there's still a bit more decorations we have to put inside of here. First of all, you guessed it, just some more wood randomly scattered around, but then some rocks because pretty much every Amazon riverbed has them. And finally, some pebbles like this, which I dropped around the enclosure, and some even tinier little pebbles, which I also dropped around the enclosure, which makes the sand across the whole thing look a little more realistic. Well, I'd say this is a pretty good start to the base of the tank, but now it's time for the fun part. Let's go get some aquatic plants for this. Okay, I'm at Petco, and I'm not gonna lie, the aquatic plant section is looking a little lousy today. Pretty much all these plants are like dead. Bro, no way I'm paying $10 for a dead stick with a little leaf. But let's buy all the ones here that are alive like this. So I picked out all the good plants and even found this little cool vine one, which of course I had to get to. So I drove home and got all the plants out. Oh man, this is already the most plants I've gotten for a video, and that's not even including this big bag of leftover plants Petco had. Anyways, I went and put each of the plants in the sand across the tank and filled it up with a bit of water. That way the roots of the plants could stay nice and moist while we continued building. Oh, and I almost forgot the most important part, this vine thing. Let's just put this across the branches like that, and oh yeah, check it out. It looks like a vine. Well, next up, as you can see, I've left this little area here empty. That's because I want to build a graveyard here with a ton of skulls and stuff, because apparently piranhas are deadly. So I drove out to buy some. Okay, I'm at PetSmart first, and I found this skull decoration, so I'm gonna get that. Ooh, and they got a tiny little animal skull. I'm definitely gonna get that too. So I bought those and a couple more decorations with skeletons on them. Then after getting home, I put some of the larger skulls around in the sand. I even replaced some of the rocks in the back with them, so this place would look extra spooky. Then with these tiny little skull beads, I'm gonna go and plant them around in the sand, just like that. Then I'm gonna sprinkle a little bit of sand on top so it looks like they've been buried. And there we go, check the graveyard out. It actually looks pretty good. Bunch of skulls on the floor, all those other big skulls. Yeah, I like it. And now finally, to finish this tank, we gotta do the DIY technologies. And for the first one, I have one of my coolest ideas ever, but I had to go buy more stuff at the store. All right, it's been a while since I went to Walmart in a video. You guys were kind of getting mad at me in the comments, so I'm sorry. I'm returning to my basics, don't worry. And the reason I'm at Walmart is because I gotta get a bunch of food that the piranhas are gonna like. So I got some beef, sardines, tuna, and bone broth, and also got this tiny little blender. After driving home, I threw all that food I just bought into the blender and blended it up. After it was done, as you can see, it turned into this nasty liquid stuff. But anyways, I sucked the liquid up into the syringe thing and brought it over to the tank. Okay, this might seem kind of complex, but it's actually genius. You see, I can basically squirt some of this around in the water, and it just spreads the scent around. And what I'm gonna do is attach it to the side of the enclosure, and whenever I wanna get the piranhas mad and in hunting mode, I just squirt a little bit of this out the end, and it'll make them go absolutely crazy. So I attached that to the side of the tank with some glue, and then it was done. And now the next technology is these two water pumps and some bubble walls that I started to set up across the whole back of the tank. You see, right now this stuff does nothing, but once I fill up the entire tank with some cycled water, which took a long time because of how big it was, check out what it can do. All right, now if I go and plug in these pumps, as you can see, it starts to make bubbles at the back of the enclosure. Yeah, it's pretty cool. But basically this little air pump just blows air into this tube, which goes into there. But what I could actually do is unattach that and just blow into this myself to make bubbles. That was cool. Anyways, the last technology is this little fish. I'm just kidding. I've actually already shown this in a video before. So what I've got is the upgraded version. Yeah, this one's way bigger and way cooler. Which, as you can see, if I just go and put it in the water like this, it starts to swim around like a normal fish. And yeah, I just think it'd be funny if I maybe tested the piranhas to see if they try to eat it or something. Anyways, this tank is now complete. And speaking of the piranhas, it's time to get them inside. Oh, yo, I just walked up on the piranhas and they haven't seen me yet. Look at what they're doing. They're like hunting around for food right now. What? Okay, I'm gonna try my best to not get bit here. Oh no. So I grabbed the temporary tank they were in and brought it over to their new home so I could scoop them out. Okay, they definitely look more aggressive than the first time I did this, but I'm just gonna carefully scoop one guy out just like that. Oh shoot, he's mad, but I'm just gonna put him into the new tank, and there you go. Be free, my friend. New home. So I did that same process with the other 5, and there we go. The piranhas were in their new home. And as you could guess, immediately they packed up like piranhas do and looked as though they were already on the hunt for food once again. Well, these piranhas look pretty hungry, I'm not gonna lie, or maybe piranhas are just always hungry. So now I'm gonna feed them the first of 5 different food sources to see which they like the most, the first of which being mealworms. And before feeding them the mealworms, if you remember, I had this pipe with the delicious juice inside, which I went and squirted inside to let the piranhas know it was feeding time. And as you could guess, they immediately started to go up and eat it, which kind of made a mess, but yeah, they were loving it. Oh my gosh, do you see that? They're all gathering around the little area where I just put it in. So now that they were ready, I dropped in the mealworms and one started to sink down. 2 of the piranhas noticed it and kind of took nibbles at it, but they were kind of just playing around with it more than they were actually eating it. And that same thing kept happening with most of mealworms, but that was until I saw this, where 3 of them took turns devouring it up, and yeah, this one actually got eaten. Okay, well, mealworms, I'm gonna give about like a 2 out of 10 on how much the piranhas like them. But as you can see, second on the list, we're gonna be feeding them crickets. Now, if you remember at the start, the piranhas wanted nothing to do with the crickets. But let's see how they'll react now that they're in this new tank. So I dropped in just one, and because it was just floating there, I grabbed it with tweezers to show the piranhas. Instantly, you could see they picked up the memo that this was alive, and they sort of started to nibble it like the mealworms. But not even a single piranha actually took a big enough bite to eat this cricket. Okay, that was pretty bad. The crickets, I'm gonna give it a 1 out of 10 because the mealworms, they at least did eat some of them. I guess these piranhas just don't really like insects, so that's why I'm gonna rapid fire the next two off. Here you can see I've got salmon and ground beef, which is a lot more smelly. They better like this. I started by waving the salmon around in the water until the piranhas noticed it, and once a few started to come up and nibble it, I accidentally dropped it into the sand where all the rest of the piranhas came swimming up. They huddled around it like a pack of hyenas and started to actually take little chunks out of the piece for them to eat. So I did the same thing with the ground beef and held it in the water. And this time the piranhas were even more interested, and instantly the entire pack huddled around it and took turns taking their bites out of it. I even noticed that the scraps of it had fallen onto the floor and were getting surrounded by the piranhas too. Well dang, I'm gonna give the salmon an 8 out of 10 and the ground beef a 9.5 out of 10. Yeah, they loved that so much, but that doesn't mean I gotta do my hand now. I said I would do it in the intro, so, you know, let's just do it. 3, 2, 1. Let's go. Start the timer. Let's see how long I can keep it in here. Right away, nothing really happened because none of the piranhas were near my hand. But I knew this was kind of cheating, so I moved my hand closer. But right away, one sort of noticed me and actually started to chase my hand as I moved it away to avoid getting bit. So of course, I moved my hand back over to the pack where some of them definitely got sort of close to biting me, but they were nowhere near as aggressive as they were towards the beef. You see, it's actually a common misconception that piranhas are evil towards humans like all the movies say. But to be honest, if you're a viewer watching this, I would not personally test it. I'm just crazy, so please subscribe for risking my hand for this content. So yeah, piranhas aren't as vicious as you may think, but next up is one of my favorite pets, an entire ant colony. You gotta see this one. Today, I just got this. It's a queen ant, who in this video will be giving birth to an entire colony, and they're gonna be put to the test against my simulations of real world events. But currently, she's alone, and she needs to care for her eggs until they hatch into worker ants. And thankfully, it didn't take very long until just that happened. The first worker was born. You see, these are trapjaw ants, a species of ant that has these massive mandibles to cut their prey in half. But they're also absolutely massive compared to normal ants, and the workers are almost the same size as the queens. And in the world of ants, the workers have only one purpose: to serve the queen. Workers do almost everything for the queens, including cleaning her and even caring for the other eggs. But I want to make my colony grow extra fast, and you do that by feeding them food. And since it's so small with just 2 ants, let's just start with a single drop of honey. Hopefully they like it. So I slid the drop of honey into the tube for the ants to eat, and almost instantly the worker went up to investigate this unknown object. She smelled around it for a second, but then went back to the queen to report the findings. The worker is able to communicate with the queen by rubbing its antenna against hers. When they do this, it releases some pheromones signaling that it found some honey. And after the queen gave the go-ahead, the worker traveled back to the honey. But instead of eating it, the worker actually knocked the little plate over, and then the honey soaked into the sand over the next 10 minutes. Yeah, she didn't even try to eat it actually. You see, it turns out the ant did this for a reason. When a colony is this small, the queen will feed the workers by regurgitating its body tissues into their mouth. This means the colony already had enough food for now. I was gonna have to wait till more ants hatched until they wanted extra food. So that's exactly what I did. There were now 4 workers a part of the colony, and their roles were becoming a lot more apparent. 2 of them would always stay by the queen to make sure she was safe, while the other 2 would watch after the eggs and guard the entrance. Now this is a colony that should accept my food offerings. And this time, I'm not just gonna feed them a puny drop of honey, it's time for some live prey, baby. Everyone say hello to flightless fruit flies. Quite literally the most depressing animal in the world. Not only are they absolutely minuscule, but it's a fly that can't fly. Like, bro, you had one job and you can't do it. All right, it's a pretty simple process. So first of all, I got this tube with the flightless fruit fly inside of it. And basically, I'm just gonna go and put this up to the ant's tube and carefully remove the cotton ball, and there we go. The fly should now run in there. Hopefully this goes better than the honey. And yeah, basically the fly instantly ran into the ant's tube, so I blocked it up behind him. Now, because this fly is so small, for the first few seconds, it actually went unnoticed, hiding amongst the top of the enclosure, but it didn't take long until the first worker noticed. The ant opened up its jaws and snapped at the fly, but it missed. Quickly, the other workers started to notice, and soon enough, every ant had their eyes on the fly. And thankfully, about a minute later, one of the workers lined up a shot, and boom. Just like that, the fly is definitely not alive anymore. And the fly slowly got taken to the back of the tube to be stored as food for later. Since the colony now had a bit of food, I let them grow even more. And oh boy, was the tube starting to get crowded now, with 3 more workers and 1 more about to hatch. And while this is great for my colony, as you can tell, the tube is getting extremely cramped. Some of the ants can't even walk around. So I'm gonna have to move these guys into a new home. But here on the Terra Green channel, we're not just gonna go online and buy an ant nest. Oh no, no, no. What I did instead is take out a brick, which I'm gonna turn into an ant nest. Yeah, I'm not kidding. Basically, I just started using a hammer and chisel to carve out this little nest design I drew on the brick. You see, ant colonies usually like to have multiple of these little tight crevice areas in their nest because it lets them store different things like eggs, food, and trash in each one. After I finished carving, I gave the whole thing a nice blue paint job, and finally I covered it with a clear acrylic sheet. And the best part is this little hole I made right here, which I can go and squeeze water down into this sponge. And this will just make the humidity across the whole enclosure correct, because apparently ants like wetness. Well anyways, here is the beautiful Terra Green ant nest, which is now ready for the trapjaw ants. Using some tubing, I put one end of it onto the nest and the other end onto the tube. And almost instantly, one of the workers took an interest and decided to walk down the tube. It had no idea where it led, but it took the brave decision to explore. But as we know, it led straight to the new nest. The worker looked super excited and explored all around the new place. It was the perfect place for the colony to move to. So she traveled out of the nest and went straight up to the queen to report its findings. Alright, now that the ants know about the new nest, in order for them to move in, I have to make this one super appealing so then they all want to come over. And I've got a couple things I'm going to do, but first of all, I've got a tube of sugar water, which I'm just going to go and plug into the side of the nest like that. And then I'm going to replace this clear acrylic sheet for now with this little red acrylic sheet. You see, ants like their nest to be very dark inside. So I'm using this red acrylic because it blocks out pretty much all the light, but still lets me see inside a bit. Finally, I just pointed my bright studio light at the tube so they'd be more inclined to move. And it didn't take very long until a few different workers all went in to explore the new nest. Eventually, every ant knew about the new home. And while some grabbed the remaining eggs to move, others, like this worker, escorted the queen through the tube to the new nest. I decided to keep the red acrylic screen on while they're adjusting, and as you can see, they were definitely very active inside. So I left them alone another whole 10 days. And when I came back, not only did another worker or 2 hatch, the whole colony was now functioning even more smoothly, and it seemed like every ant was always busy doing something. They even found this tight little crevice to keep the queen and all the eggs inside of. And this is where it gets fun, because now that the ants have their own little nest, I can build them a bunch of different outworlds of different environments that they can go and hunt for food inside of. And as you can see, I've got the first little outworld right here. Let me build it. For this first outworld, I want to keep it simple by just laying down some orange sand across the whole enclosure. Then I put in some rocks and a little cactus, which was kind of hard to get planted in the sand. And even though I was wearing these gloves, it kept poking me, and yeah, it kind of hurts. Anyways, finally, the most important part is this stuff called fluon. Basically, it's a liquid that you dab onto a cotton ball and rub across the top of the enclosure. This stuff will basically just dry on the glass and make the top of the enclosure so slippery that ants cannot escape no matter what. After the desert enclosure was done, I connected a tube from it into the nest so the ants could go there. And soon enough, I saw a worker come out into the tube, and of course, she made her way over to the desert outworld and started to explore all around it. Now, the reason for why I built this outworld. I want to test the trapjaw mandibles to see if they can take down prey bigger than them. I'm gonna put a cricket in here. So without wasting any time, I dropped the cricket in, and it didn't take very long until the cricket came across paths with an ant. You see, trapjaw ants have these little hairs inside of their jaws to detect when prey is within striking distance. It lunged at the cricket and snapped its jaws, but it missed. The ant tried to attack the cricket a few more times, but all of the shots were missing. In fact, it was taking so long that the cricket made its way into the tube and crawled all the way into the nest with all the other ants. Now, it wasn't just about food. The colony needed to take down this cricket in order to make sure the queen didn't get hurt. While the cricket frantically ran around, almost all of the workers were taking their shots to try and cut off the cricket's leg or something. It was taking a long time, but eventually this worker here really put in some focus to line up her shots. And when she snapped, she perfectly got a hold of the cricket. She then picked it up and slammed it against the floor until it stopped stopped moving. Yes, it's extremely brutal, but the colony had now successfully eliminated the threat and stored it away as food for later. Anyways, over the next few days, I continued to monitor the colony to ensure their eggs were all growing fine, and even fed them a bit more flightless fruit flies until finally it was day 97. The colony now had 12 workers, and of course the queen. But I did actually notice over in the corner of the nest, one of the ants had curled up and had died. It's likely that this dead ant here was one of the founding workers, because sometimes those first ants only have the lifespan of a month or two. Anyways, despite the dead ant, the colony was actually still thriving. And because of that, I think this colony is now ready for an entire new outworld to be built. Because as you can see, they kind of just turned the desert into like a trash dumping ground. So I got out the enclosure and started to build it. For this enclosure, I'm literally making the floor out of just this fake grass material that is nice and bright and green. And for the decorations, I'm keeping it very simple with just these two little pieces of bark. And finally, I just hooked up some tubing so the ants could access the new place. I didn't want to rush them though, so I gave the colony a few days to explore it on their own. And all of the ants were fine on day 98 and day 99. But I came back on day 100 to just a single ant in the nest. I was really confused, but surely they were all just exploring the outworlds or something. So I checked the desert and nothing was there. Then I checked the grassy outworld. Still not a single ant. But then I found it. The tiniest gap under the red acrylic. Barely visible, but it was just big enough for every ant to be able to escape through it overnight, except the one. And this wasn't just any ant inside of here, it was the queen. Queens don't just leave the nest unless other ants escort them, so she was here all alone on day 100, just like she was on day 1. This is seriously so crazy. I mean, I had such cool plans for day 100, but I can't find a single worker ant literally anywhere. I checked all around the table. I figured there was only one right thing to do, so I got a cotton ball, I scooped the queen up onto it, and put her into a new test tube. She had raised the start of a colony all by herself once, so she should be able to do it again. Yeah, well, it sucks that the ants escaped, but anyway, speaking of ants, the next pet is actually called a velvet ant, but most people call it a cow killer, and you'll quickly figure out why it's called that. There's this insanely viral YouTube video where a guy named Coyote Peterson lets himself get stung by a cow killer, and based off of his reaction, you can tell this insect has one of the most painful stings in the entire world. Now, normally you would want to stay away from these things, but I just found a website that will sell you one as a pet. They say this thing's called a cow killer because its sting is powerful enough to kill a literal cow. Huh, what could go wrong? Let's just buy this at the cart. So in this video, I'm gonna build it at home, show off everything about keeping a pet cow killer, which means yes, I am going to let it crawl on my arm. If it stings me, I am going to be in so much pain. But until it got delivered to my house, I got out the enclosure and a bunch of desert rocks to build its home. To start, I stacked each of the rocks in this pattern that would create a canyon look in here. Now, the reason I bought these types of rocks is because they look like the rocks in real canyons. But yeah, because they look so realistic, these rocks were very expensive. Yes, that's actually how much they costed. We don't talk about that. You see, cow killers live in deserts in the wild, which sort of makes sense because all of the most deadly and painful animals live in the desert. Anyways, to finish the canyon look in this enclosure, I got some of this excavator sand stuff. You see, if I add this bowl of water to this tub of the sand and, you know, pour it in there like that, then just go and mix it up with my hand. And after a minute, it turns it into this clay substrate, which I can kind of make into a nice ball of, poop. Yes, it's kind of nasty. But basically, using this clay, I'm gonna go and stick it in between each of these rocks to kind of glue them together, and we're gonna have a nice completed canyon look in here. Anyways, after putting that all over the rocks and letting it dry, it ended up looking pretty good. But the next step to finishing this desert is, of course, to put some sand in here, because, you know, deserts, they have to have sand. But before putting the sand in, first I've got these big bags of black rocks, and apparently if I scatter this around the floor before putting the sand in, it should help absorb any extra moisture, and that'll prevent any mold from growing in this desert. Next up, I got out another container and filled it with some sand and some of this soil to make the desert substrate. Basically, the reason why I'm using this as the substrate is because when I put the plants and cactuses inside, this soil is going to provide a lot of nutrients, so they're able to grow nice and tall, and we get a fully fledged desert in here. So I went and poured that on top of all of the carbon and pushed it up against the rocks to make the desert floor. But as you can see, this doesn't really look like a desert because of how much dirt I added to that substrate, so I quickly poured a thin layer layer of just normal sand on top so it would look like a desert once again.
Alright, this is already starting to look like a good cow killer enclosure, but to make it even better, it's time to add in some plants and decorations.
First, for the decorations, and that basically just means wood and rocks, because that's pretty much all deserts have, to be honest. They're pretty boring. First of all, I put some of this spider wood around the tank randomly, and even used some of it to make little bridges across the canyons that the cow killer would be able to walk on. Then I got some of these longer sticks and put them on the side of the canyon to make it look like there were roots growing from it or something. Yeah, pretty cool.
But I did end up getting two cool decorations, which are right here. The first of which is these little logs, which are called cholla wood. And the reason these are a cool decoration is because cholla, it's a cool word to say, I'm not gonna lie. Oh, and also they're good because they have all these little holes so the cow killer can run inside and then just hide and make a home in there. So yeah, that's good. And for the second cool decoration, I got a live scorpion. I'm just kidding. It's actually not a live scorpion. Oh, it's a plastic toy scorpion, but you know, it's a desert, so I think it'll fit pretty well. I'm just gonna put it right in this empty spot there. Take a look at that. Looks pretty deserty.
Now for the plants, and as you know, not many things can live in the deserts since it's so dry, so our only options are succulents and cacti, which of course are able to absorb tons of water.
But I don't have any of those types of plants, so I gotta go to the store. Let's go. Okay, so as you guys can see, I'm at Home Depot. And the reason I'm here to get plants is because I saw a comment from one of you guys saying you got 820 plants for $30. And that seems like a pretty good deal. I mean, it's probably a typo or something, but let's just go see if Home Depot has any good deals on plants.
So I made my way over to the garden section expecting there to be a ton of plants. But when I got there was literally nothing.
Bro, there is not a single plant in sight. What is this?
But apparently because it was winter, they just moved most of the plants inside because I ended up finding this little collection of plants.
Dang, look at all these succulents. Wait, this is actually exactly what I need. Okay, let me just pick out a few of these. And of course, let's get some cactuses like down here, or cacti. I don't know how to say it plural.
So I picked out a nice selection, and while I didn't get as good of a deal as that comment said, it still only costed like $20 for all these plants, which is pretty good. Anyways, to plant these desert plants, I shook off all the excess dirt and planted just the roots in the sand. And in no time, it was done. But the final step to finishing the cow killer's home is insects. And I've got two different species of insects I want to put in here. First of all, you already know I've got springtails, the extremely tiny white creepy bug things. And yeah, there's just like 1,000 of them in here. All these tiny little white things moving. Those are all springtails.
But these are extra important in a desert enclosure like this because every now and then I'm gonna have to go and spray each of the plants down and water them, and the springtails will make sure to eat up any extra mold that grows because of all the moisture. So yeah, they're pretty useful. Let's just dump these guys in here. Yeah, pretty good.
And second of all, I've got these things, which are mealworms.
But the real reason why I'm going to put these guys in the enclosure is because I'm kind of interested to see if the cow killer is going to go and just sting them, to be honest. I don't really know if the cow killer eats insects like this, but I guess I'm going to figure out with you guys once we put them in here.
Well, this desert enclosure is now complete, and that means I got to get the pet cow killer. Yeah, I don't even know why I get pets like this.
Well, guys, it took a long time for this to get delivered, and I don't even know why it says live fish if there's a cow killer in here. But anyways, I guess it's time to bring this thing inside, show off exactly what a pet cow killer is like, and of course, let it crawl on my arm. I know I keep bringing this up, but seriously, if I get stung by this thing, I'm going to be in this much pain. Like, just look at this guy's face. I just don't want to do that. But anyways, let's just go inside and open this.
So I cut the tape and got the container out that supposedly the bug was inside.
Okay, so this is not so promising. It's just a clear plastic container with a paper towel. Well, I guess let me just carefully take the lid off and, okay, please, hopefully nothing jumps out at me.
I very carefully used some tweezers to move the paper towel into another container. And then I carefully moved around that paper towel to try and reveal the cow killer.
Oh, I think I see it in there. Wait, do you see that? Hold on, look at this. Oh, that's the cow killer. This may not look like it, but this thing right here is one of the most painful stinging insects, or not even insects, just animals in the entire world.
But I couldn't just move it straight inside of the new enclosure because first I had to build the rest of it on so it wouldn't be able to escape. Because if it did, that would be really bad.
Okay, well, it's right here, so I'm just gonna risk it for the biscuit and pick it up super carefully. And drop it. Okay, you're in your new home. Enjoy it.
Soon enough, the bug crawled out of its paper towel and started to explore around his new home. But considering the cow killer spent the last week in that shipping box, it's probably pretty hungry. So I wanted to get it fed right away.
And when you search it on Google, it says the cow killers like to eat nectar, larvae, and adult insects. So I think first I'm going to feed them some of this insect jelly food, which I usually feed to my crickets. But basically, it should replicate the nectar that they find in flowers in the wild.
So I opened up the pack of jelly and put it right in front of the cow killer. Within about a minute, it must have picked up the scent because it crawled right up to it and just stayed there looking like it was eating it.
Yo, look at the cow killer. It just put its face straight up to the jelly and is just devouring it, I'm pretty sure.
And yeah, he really just sat there for 20 whole minutes eating it, and I eventually just took the jelly away from him because I didn't want him to eat too much.
Anyways, I want to see if this cow killer is going to eat the other stuff that Google said it would eat. And one of the things it said it would eat is adult insects. And if you remember, I did put mealworms in here. Let me see if I can find one. Here we go. There's just a mealworm in the sand right there. But I just want to bring this right over to the cow killer and see if it reacts if I just drop it right next to it. Let's see what happens here.
Now, right away, the cow killer noticed the mealworm and went straight up to it. But while it even started to crawl on top of the mealworm, it didn't really seem to care at all that it was there. In fact, it kind of just put its mouth on the sand where the insect jelly was just sitting to try and suck up any of the last sugar that was there. So yeah, I guess they don't really eat insects.
All right, so nighttime, and I got my mom in here. Say hi.
Hi.
Now, the reason I got my mom in here is because I was gonna need her to film the cow killer when it walked on my arm. But first, I had to show her the bug.
Can you just guess what's inside real quick, based off the desert?
Some sort of bug.
Yeah, it is a bug. Actually, you can probably see it. It's in this little container right here. Basically, if I take this off, it's this little red creature bug thing, and it's called a cow killer because they say its sting is painful enough to be able to kill a literal cow.
What?
Yeah, so basically, the reason I brought you in today is because I just want you to film me, basically letting it crawl on me, because I was just thinking, you know, like I just want to bond with it.
That sounds like a really bad idea.
So first, I'm going to start by picking up its abdomen with these tweezers. Now, don't worry, this doesn't actually hurt the bug because it has a super strong abdomen. It's just basically like a skeleton. Oops, I dropped it.
But eventually, I picked it up again and put it inside of the container.
Okay, you got a good shot. So basically, I'm just going to start by putting this like this. I don't want to get it mad when it crawls out. I just want to let it crawl out itself.
And this will kill a cow.
Well, yeah, that's what they say, but I don't think it actually can. All I know is it's super painful.
It didn't take long until the cow killer got to the edge of the container and then stepped onto my arm.
Now we just hope and pray this doesn't sting me right now. So I don't want to make any sudden movements, then it's going to know I'm bad and it's going to try to sting me.
Now I had to let it stay on me for at least a minute. So in the meantime, I just tried to talk with my mom to distract me.
What is the purpose of this? You want to bond with your pet?
Yeah, because everyone bonds with their dog and stuff. I just want to bond with my cow killer. You see how its stinger's just like crawling along me? It could accidentally sting me at any moment.
At this point, it started to look more aggravated, and as soon as the timer hit 60 seconds, I put the container in front of it, hoping it would crawl in. But it ended up crawling around it onto the side of my arm, where it eventually fell off onto the table. So I quickly scooped it up back into its container.
We got it. That was actually really nerve-wracking. I don't know if I was saying a lot. I was actually like, my heart was pounding like 200 beats a second. But now I can say I've been bonded with a cow killer.
What are you going to name it?
The cow killer.
The cow killer.
That's a cool name.
Whew, I'm very happy I didn't get stung by that, but let me tell you, a little while after that video was posted, I came across this abandoned tank. Today, I found a listing of a pet snake's home. When I clicked on it, I saw a pretty trash enclosure with paper towels as the floor, dirt all over the glass, and none of the stuff a snake would actually need.
Hey, $55. It's honestly not that bad of a deal. Let's go save this snake.
So I drove out to the cellar and bought the tank for $55.
Okay, I just got this in my car, and I've got to take this home quickly to make sure the snake inside is healthy. And if it is, I'm going to revamp this trash into a dream home to give the snake inside his best life. I've got no time to waste. Let's go.
After getting it home, the first step was to, of course, remove the snake from the enclosure.
So I have this tool to grab it. I really hope the snake in there isn't venomous. I have to be super careful.
I obviously didn't want to get my hands anywhere near this enclosure since the snake could be anywhere, so I used the tool to try and take out as many of the objects as I could. And it didn't take long until when I moved this piece of paper towel, I saw a glimpse of the snake under it. Thankfully, after seeing it move, it looked like it was still in good health, so I picked it up to take a closer inspection.
Okay, come on, snake. let me get you in this temporary tank real quick.
And after comparing the colors and pattern of the snake to a bunch of different species, I think I found out exactly what species it was.
Okay, check this out. This is called a Kenyan sand boa, and this looks exactly like the one I got. Okay, if this is actually a Kenyan sand boa, that means it's not venomous, and I should actually be able to just go and pick it up. Are you gonna bite me?
Now, at first, I was pretty scared to pick it up, but then I realized it was actually super chill and friendly and wouldn't bite me at all.
Oh, look at this. Okay, from what I know, this species is actually a super good pet, so this is gonna be awesome.
But the main reason I was so excited about this species is because they have this special ability to burrow themselves in the floor and pop out to strike prey when it walks by. And yeah, I'm gonna get to watch that happen. It's so cool. Anyways, first, to start this enclosure transformation process, step number 1 is to take out the ugly remaining decorations.
Okay, I have no idea why there's all this random stuff in here, like a giant fake plant. This is not at all what sand boas need.
So of course I gathered all of that up and threw it straight into the garbage bin where it belongs.
Then that leaves us with this. This is so bad. There's just paper towels as the floor and a random pile of dirt. Yeah, sand boas need at least a couple inches of substrate for the floor so they can go in it and burrow. So this is definitely not good enough. Yeah, let's get this out of here. And like, why is there just random like red stains on this? Yeah,
after taking the remaining dirt out, I had to finally get out a little razor and scrape off all these little piles of glue and dirt off the wall. I have no idea why they were there, but they're ugly, so they gotta go.
Well, we're back to just the tank now, and this is where things get fun.
You see, the first step to build the snake's dream home is to create the background. And to do that, I used some animal-safe spray foam to cover the entire back of the glass so I could attach rocks and sticks. You see, I want to create a mix of a desert and forest in this enclosure to sort of mimic the snake's natural habitat. And to complete that look, I covered the remaining foam in some sand and other foresty decorations like dirt.
All right, this background's looking pretty nice and foresty, but for step 2 of making this a dream home is to put the floor and decorations in.
But before I can put any dirt in here, I first have to fill it with a bunch of these clay balls, and then cover those with some window screen.
Now, if you're a terrarium expert, you already know what I'm doing. Basically, what I've built here will allow water to pass through just like that, but not dirt, essentially creating a drainage layer in here, which will stop mold from growing. So yeah, that's pretty good.
Now, for the substrate mix that goes on top, we're only going to use a little bit of sand. You see, despite being called a sand boa, it's actually better for the species to have this wood chip stuff called cypress bedding make up most of the floor. But I also mixed in some other brown foresty stuff to make it a little bit softer. Finally, I poured a few inches of that inside and covered it in a thin layer of just dirt to make it less ugly.
Now for the decorations, and as you can see, I got a ton of stuff, but I want to make this interesting to watch, so start this super cool, epic building decorations montage. Let's go. Yeah, that was pretty cool. But now you're probably noticing that the left and right sides of the enclosure are looking pretty barren and empty. Well, that's because step number 3 is to put DIY decorations there.
First up, the left side. Here, I want to build a giant massive tree trunk that looks like it has leaves and stuff coming off of it. And to do that, I went and gathered all the wood I had in my house into a big container so I could easily access it.
This is all just leftover wood from previous